Hello, everyone. My name is Anish. Welcome to Pi for Thought, a podcast by the Indian Journal for Projects, Infrastructure, and Energy Law. Um, Naman, you can go ahead.
Sure. Thank you so much for the introduction, Anish. Our guest tonight is Mr. Vibhore Chaturvedi, someone who has been associated with us since day one. He's an adjunct advisor at IJPIEL and he's a senior associate at FoxMandal. And he possesses over 12 years of experience in project finance and infrastructure laws. And we are going to talk to him tonight about his journey in this field and how he accidentally became a project finance lawyer, and what are the ups and downs of this field, and what are the challenges. Over to you, Vibhor sir. How did you become a project finance lawyer, and when was the moment that you thought that you should get into this field?
Uh, Good evening, Naman. Thank you for the introduction. Honestly, working into project financing and infrastructure was not a planned thing as such, because during your law school days, you studied different areas of law, and during internships also you are asked to work on different matters relating to maritime, corporate laws, M&A, private equity, and banking. But after completing my law, I took a break for 6 months. I completed my CS executive program first, and then I was fortunate enough to get a call from one of the partners at a tier one law firm. They were looking out for associates who are interested to try a new and upcoming sector, that was project financing and infrastructure, and they were also a tier one growing firm. So they asked me to take a chance and grow with the firm, and I luckily took that chance, and I started working in project financing and infrastructure matters. And it's been almost a decade of experience now that I have been working as project finance and infrastructure lawyer. So I have a mixed corporate as well as law firm experience, because I understand that since these transactions are more commercial in nature, it's important to have a commercial understanding, and you should understand basic financial terms, and apart from the legal study that we do.
So, sir, another thing which I wanted to ask you was that when you started off in this field, what was the one thing that you found the most challenging?
Most challenging, in fact, on my first day of work, I was given to work on a review of one agreement. And the first challenge was that after reading the operative portion, going through the sanction, most of the terms I didn't understand. So the challenge was to deliver the work at hand within the deadline, and at the same time you have to also make sure that you don't compromise on the quality. So sometimes you do feel that the subjects that are not taught in your law school, and which are upcoming, for example, clean energy and infrastructure and construction, the new developments that are happening. So the challenge that fresh lawyers or out of who are out of law school face is to balance the deadline as well as the quality of work, because the challenge is that you don't know what you are reading sometimes. So, and Google doesn't answer everything, so you need the right kind of books, which are also not available, especially in project financing and infrastructure. At our time, maybe it was just one or two books that were available, and that were also too technical. So that was the most challenging part, that you have to kind of understand what is kind of mentioned in your sanction terms, agreements, project agreements, or financing documents, and you have not studied that in law school. So that was the major challenge that I faced.
You said there was a lack of books at the time when you were studying about PIE law. Would you suggest a few right now? Do you have a couple off the top of your head?
So there is one infrastructure and projects by Prasanna Chandra that you can look up. That is one book. But especially in project financing and infrastructure, I have also realized that you have to learn the skills on the job. because there are multiple parties involved in the transaction. So even if you study in books that how a transaction flow or what will be the structure of a transaction, but at the same time that you have to cater to the needs of all the parties involved. Even if you are representing only the lender, or you are acting as the lender's counsel or the borrower's counsel, it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, you need to have everything in place, and you have to protect interest of all the parties to kind of avoid any litigations or disputes in the long run. So
Mhm.
apart from the books, the in my last few years of experience, I've also realized that you mainly learn on the job, and while negotiating or speaking to different parties involved, or while you are negotiating with other law firms, or when you are talking to business people who bring out perspective in these documents, you kind of understand as to what is necessary from a commercial angle, what cannot be compromised from a legal perspective. So it's you have to have that kind of patience to kind of work on various transactions. Then only you'll be able to uh, gather good amount of experience in this area.
So, sir, I wanted to ask you about, the diverse sectors in which project finance applies. And it is so wide ranging from airports to maritime to renewables to non-renewables. Is there any particular subsector that you've really liked working on? And is there any subsector which you found, very, very difficult to work on? Something very, very challenging?
So I would say more than the subsectors, every deal that comes across as challenging, because since this sector is evolving right now in India, from the kind of developments that we are seeing on the regulatory front, the initiatives that the government is taking, I would say that every deal that we work on or the transaction is equally challenging, and we get to learn various complexities or the structures, even today, with every additional very with every new or additional deal that we work on.
And
Um,
sir, another classic question. Would you prefer an in-house job or would you prefer a law firm job? And what would be the reason behind your choice?
See, I mean, every place that you work, or every role that you take up, it has its own pros and cons. It has its own challenges. So I was working with one of the leading financial institutions for few years. Now I'm into private practice. So ideally, I am enjoying this also. And since every day there's a new challenge, you have to cater to different clients. You have to get into the business development part of it when you are working into when you are working with a law firm. And when you are working in an in-house role, you may get that kind of stability and security. And the but then at the same time, in an in-house role, uh, the business teams will be after you for there also. You have to adhere to the deadlines, you have to come up with various ideas, you have to be creative, because before the board, they'll look up to you for different you for coming up with the different structures or the deals that they are looking for. Vis-a-vis in law firm structure, the hierarchy is different, your growth is different. So it depends from individual to individual. And personally, I have gained wherever I have worked, whether it was in-house or right now I'm working with a law firm. So with each passing day, you grow. Eventually you make that personal choice. But the important thing to keep in mind is that wherever you are, the job should be satisfying, and you should be growing.
I
Thank you,
think
sir.
law students would really appreciate that advice, because a lot of people have that dilemma of whether they want to do the same thing, whether should they go for a law firm or should they go for in-house, etc. That said, sir, like how would anyone who has a goal of working in PIE law, how would you think they should be going through law school?
So during law school, first and foremost advice I would give is that you should be generally aware. You should keep abreast with the latest developments that are happening. You should be generally aware the companies that are kind of investing in the clean energy or the construction sector right now. Then you should also read newspapers wherein even if you find, maybe for example, a circular or the notification that maybe RBI comes out with, or any regulatory authority comes out with, you may find it difficult in your student days to understand, but then it is simplified by various blogs, articles, or maybe by newspapers that come out with this simplified form of understanding of that particular resolution or the notification. So it's important to kind of understand what is happening in the market, because then only once you develop that kind of understanding, you'll get interested into that sector or field, and you'll be able to kind of decide also whether you want to take that sector up later or not. So to take an informed decision, it's important to uh, kind of read the articles, blogs. Uh, During COVID, we saw that many seniors from the industry came out with different webinars, and we got an opportunity to hear people otherwise you would not have otherwise. So it's important to listen to webinars. There's so much information out there right now. So first, try to develop your basics, grow your networking. It's important to be well connected. After that, then reading books is equally important to understand the basics. Then shifting to the from your initial days only, you should kind of go through the regulations, websites, informal guidance, for example, that SEBI comes out with. So there are certain parameters which are important to follow during your law school, and at the same time you should have that kind of patience, wherein it will take some time to take an informed decision and decide whether you want to continue in certain field or area or not. But it's important to be well aware of what is happening generally in the market, and apart from your law school studies.
Sir, that question of yours also, made me think that how do you approach a mentor? Because, sir, I've had this big issue in my initial days that I used to cold mail so many people for advice regarding PIE laws, but, to hardly any avail. So, sir, if, you were in the shoes of a student, how would you, approach someone for advice in PIE laws? How do you find that perfect mentor who guides you regarding this field where there are not many people who possess expertise?
See, so I mean, I would say here luck plays a big role, because instead of you finding a mentor, if mentor finds you and his intentions are to guide you, then definitely it will really help you in the career. So there, I feel that uh, I mean, but otherwise, I mean. I would suggest that, see, that these days there are different conferences happening where you guys can visit and speak to people, introduce yourselves. There are the information that is out there on law firms websites, or otherwise they keep conducting various uh, webinars or events where students can join in and ask questions. So that is how you can do it. Otherwise, the only opportunity that law students get is to interact with senior people in the industry or experienced people is during their internships. So during your internships, it's important to connect with right kind of people, approach them, talk to them, gain their take advice from them regarding their experiences, how they have gone about their careers, or what additional efforts you guys can take, and that is how you can go about it.
That makes sense, sir. I think like with the advent of technology, I have seen so many of my friends like take online courses, online webinars, just to do the exact like achieve the exact same objectives. And I think like at least the concept of university with so much dependent on choices, um, attending seminars and webinars has to be like somewhere up near the top with the list of priorities. It's because we have no other places other than professors to interact with someone better than us to get better at things that we're not already good at.
uh, these days you can have internship opportunities in international jurisdictions also. If you approach a partner at a firm in an international jurisdiction, there are ample opportunities where you can get that kind of exposure as well. So speaking to your professors, networking with people at various law firms, meeting senior people in the industry at various conferences which you can visit during your free time, those are certain things that you can attempt to get that right kind of interaction, or maybe find that right mentor you are looking for.
Sir, let's presume that a university's vice chancellor is going to hear this. Why? What would you say to convince the vice chancellor that you should take courses in PIE law and you should teach children PIE law?
So it's important to teach PIE laws in universities across India, is for the very fact that project financing and infrastructure is not just about construction of roads or building of airports and ports. These public services affect the citizens of our country. And at the same time, when as lawyers we are working on certain transactions and deals, it's a bigger responsibility also. And if we don't understand the nuances of it, how are we going to make good PIE lawyers? So, and on top of that, the fact remains that apart from your legal studies that you do in your law schools, project financing, again, if you don't understand the commercial or the financial aspect of it, will not be able to do justice to the transactions or deals that you are working on. So it's very important to have a foundation laid out.
Thank you so much for your answer. But as like an anxious fourth year student who would possibly graduate before the time any of these measures are implemented, is there
Mhm.
something that we can possibly do to bridge that gap between the learning? How do you try moving from an aspirant to someone who's actually in the field? Because the way it happens occasionally, as you very rightly said early on in the interview, is very, very rapid. And sometimes it comes to you all of a sudden and you learn on the job. Is there any way that we could, in the most simplistic of terms, prepare ourselves better for the job?
When we are talking about PIE law, it's not specific to Electricity Act or NHAI acts that we go through. It's also important to know Companies Act and your other SEBI regulations, banking acts at the same time, and to understand again, as you mentioned, you were asking about the academic support that you can gain even if the subjects are not taught in law school. I would say that you can maybe MBA management degree or a bachelor's in economics or commerce will help you in that sense, because even while you are reading or going through Companies Act, you are working on an M&A transaction maybe in PIE. uh, it's important to kind of understand the basics, how a company functions, what are the roles that shareholders play or directors of a company. The maybe the compliances part of it, definitely you will study in law, but the commercial aspects again hit while you are working on these transactions and deals. And it's important to understand at least the foundation of a company and the structure of a company. And that is where your management degree or a bachelor's in commerce or economics will, additionally from the academic support that you'll get from the degrees that I'm talking about, one should also start reading financial newspapers which are Mint, Economic Times or Business Standard. Because initially I can tell you, you may find it boring, you may not understand a lot of terms, but once you get into the habit of it and you start understanding what is happening in the market, you are automatically, you would want to get up every morning and follow what is happening out there. And then that is also give it gives you a sense of perspective as to what are the real concerns that the government is facing, the borrower companies are facing, or the investors, which will also help you in the long run when you start working on actual transactions or deals, will help you with your law degree.
Um, all right, sir. Finally, could you give us a parting message for our listeners and viewers? Anything that pops out for them specifically?
It's important to first and foremost, it's important to have a passion for what you do. So it's important to develop an interest. That interest comes with patience. You have to have that patience initially, whatever you do, not only PIE law, any area of work that you take up, there will be challenges, and you will think of leaving it at some point of time. You have to have
Mhm.
that patience, and you have to kind of give that amount of time wherein you garner interest, and then you take an informed decision, and you progress in that area. Secondly, as we are working in challenging environments, the law students also, while you guys do internships, you work with strict deadlines. So it's important to take care of mental health, and you have to take care of you have to have self care as well. So that would be my important message to everyone listening to this, is that you have to have patience in what you take up. And secondly, it's also important to while you are passionate about something, you are putting in maybe 16 to 18 hours a day in area of work that you are doing. But at the same time, it's important to have that kind of balance where your health and your mental health and your physical health is also taken care of.
Thank you so much for that, sir. I think that really destigmatizes the idea of mental health and self-care for law students with the current idea of work culture that we have. Um, that said, Naman, you wanna close it off?
Okay, and that wraps up episode one of our podcast. Long awaited, and it's been a pleasure to host you, Vibhor sir.
And thank you to our listeners and viewers. If you want to reach out to us and further our discussion, you can do so at ijpil.podcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.